with big government controls. AMAC, the Association of Mature Americans.
I was doing really good, and now we're not. And we make decent money, but
every week I go out for groceries, it's like another dollar up, another dollar.
Everything I like to buy costs more money.
Just buying food, it takes over like a quarter or third of my income.
Over the last few months, it's to the point where I don't even hardly shop anymore. It's ridiculous to go in the store and you can't buy meat. Eggs are even, you go in and you just, I came out with 2 small bags and paid over $100.
This is Ted Cruz. Let's go, Branden.
All right, 20 days. Do you know how you're... I think, so all of our elections, all of the races that involve people, that's easy for us here in mid-Missouri. I think Amendment 3, marijuana, recreational marijuana, that's one that's got folks tripped up. And I don't think it's about the weed. It's about all the junk in there. But hopefully, as the White House continues to campaign from the podium, despite the fact Karine Jean-Pierre several times yesterday, the Hatch Act, we don't talk politics up here. I think they're campaigning, but they might be making the case for Republicans. 20 days from now is the election. Good morning. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Stephanie Pell.
Good morning.
I'm Branden Rathert. Mr. John Marsh checking in. There's producer Hannah.
Hello.
Brian Houseworthy is running around, too. So 20 days until the election. And I think is what we're seeing on a national level. I hope folks here in mid-Missouri, they will see that. It's not just about the president. It's about Democrat policies. It's about the hypocritical things that they say and do, by the way. And we saw that front and center yesterday at the White House. Karine Jean-Pierre, let's start here first. We know the comments made by Joe Biden over the weekend. And remember, I think the most important thing to remember here is context. When Biden said our economy is strong as hell, remember, he's in an ice cream shop licking ice cream. The only thing that's missing was a dunce cap on his head. He's licking ice cream. I don't know what flavor the ice cream was, but he's licking the ice cream. Our economy is strong as hell. It really is.
Our economy is strong as hell.
While licking an ice cream cone. Single dip waffle cone, chocolate chip mint, $9. But the economy is strong. Karine Jean-Pierre, yesterday in the White House, asked by Fox's Pete Ducey, they're saying, hey, about those comments.
How is it that we can be barreling towards a recession and the economy is, as the president says, strong as hell?
So here's the thing about the economy, and I've said this many times.
And she didn't say anything. She went into the gobbledygook. And that's where I hope maybe people are realizing, like, hey, what they're saying out of the White House. And it's not just because it's the president, but it's that progressive mindset. They lie all the time. Remember, the same person who says the border is secure. They lie. And I hope people are catching on. And I'll go back to yesterday. I think people laughed, but Sonny Hostin on The View the other day, we made a big deal of how we never talk about what Whoopi Goldberg talks about and Sonny Hostin, but I think what Sonny Hostin said the other day regarding Herschel Walker looking like a pretty good candidate in Georgia, I think that's important because who's at home watching The View? And we did a great lesson in stereotyping. And we all, didn't we? We went around the room, who do we think is watching The View? Well, progressive, maybe unemployed chicks. And so for women, sorry.
And men, unemployed men, maybe.
But definitely progressive. There's no doubt their audience is progressive. I don't think you'll see many conservatives in the audience there watching that show. But she she said on the air that she felt like, and I think the audience thought she was talking about Warnock. She said he did very, very well, but then she clarified, I'm talking about that was powerful. And notice none of the other hosts said anything.
No, they went after her. And I think it's important because of who's watching the show. Again, I don't care what they say on The View, but I thought that was important. We had the basically the in-house liberal on Fox's The Five sometimes. And I can't remember her name all of a sudden, but we played her audio yesterday where she was saying, listen, the Democrats, and James Carville has said it in the past, the Democrats are hanging their hat on wokeness. And this Democratic strategist says, we go to Mexicans and people from South America and we talk to them about the Latinx term. They don't know what it means, and people don't care about it. It's befuddling Democrats, and they're going, why are we so hung up on these labels? I hope this is good news. So more at the White House yesterday. How many times have we heard Karine Jean-Pierre criticize Trump, talk about how, and I get it, you got to talk about how good your current guy is doing. But I thought it was interesting. She went after the Supreme Court of the United States following the ruling on abortion. She criticized the Supreme Court of the United States of America. So it was interesting here yesterday when she starts to invoke the Hatch Act. What's the Hatch Act?
Well, the Hatch Act basically just prohibits certain federal employees from engaging in partisan political activity. We have a state, like a similar state provision. Most people know, statewide elected officials can't be campaigning from their official office, and state employees do have limitations. You can't get paid by the taxpayer dime and be out there campaigning.
Exactly. And one that's spot on about that and was very similar as well. But at the federal level, I know former Congressman Lacey Clay worked on that bill as well. But where it applies to presidents, and it does in their administration, all presidents, every president, including this one, goes out and does political fundraisers about this time of the year. That is absolutely common. But what they have to do, basically, Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong, they have to also do it coinciding with an official event. They have to, let's say, dedicate something. Maybe they have to meet with the governor of Oregon to talk about wildfires while they're there. They can do a fundraiser. That's my understanding of the law.
And the elected officials have a little bit more flexibility, but like the Hatch Act would apply to KJP here, in that she can't stand from the podium and use her, because she's on duty, being paid by the taxpayer, so she cannot be there basically campaigning for Joe Biden from her podium.
I want to be really careful because of the Hatch Act. I can't speak to...
All of a sudden, Marsh, now she wants to be careful of the Hatch Act. Yep. She got in trouble, as a matter of fact, because she, in effect, was campaigning for former Governor Terry McAuliffe in Virginia. Said, we will do everything in our power to make sure you can't do that kind of stuff. And it happens all the time. By the way, Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about John Fetterman. So John Fetterman, he's running. It's in Pennsylvania. He's the guy who's making the hoodie uncool. I don't even like wearing my hoodie anymore because that kind of identifies this guy.
Okay.
The hoodie.
Yeah.
The hoodie, and he's got the plumber look, but he's ruining the hoodie. So she's being asked in the White House yesterday, hey, what does Joe think about John Fetterman? He had a stroke. That's not funny. It's causing him health issues, and I think potentially he had some serious thinking issues anyway, even prior to his stroke. So Karine Jean-Pierre is asked yesterday in the White House. By the way, and who would ask that question? You're asking one idiot to pass judgment on another idiot, in effect? That was the question.
So again, because it's connected to his election, I want to be really careful. The Hatch Act, it's something that we do respect and adhere to here. But speaking only about the president's personal conversation with Lieutenant Governor Fetterman, the president has found him to be an impressive individual.
That would be, isn't that like O.J. saying Jeffrey Dahmer, he wasn't a bad guy. So you're asking somebody who has thinking and cognitive disabilities anyway in Joe Biden. Joe Biden is saying Mr. Fetterman is fine. And again, Mr. Fetterman really is not fine. You see the tapes and all that stuff. But people, I think, so badly because, well, they want the Democrat to win. It's too much. We want our team to win. This guy is maybe not fit to hold office because of his stroke, and he shouldn't be teased for that. But my gosh, maybe you should drop out of the race. But Joe Biden thinks he's doing all right, so I don't know if that's the offensive thumbs up emoji there.
Or is it more offensive that Fetterman probably wants, like, Joe Biden's support and everyone else is? I mean, is that a sign of his cognitive abilities? Because everyone else who has any cognitive ability at all is like, doesn't want anything to do with him.
We know people like Mark Kelly, Democrat in Arizona. He's distanced himself from Joe Biden. Stacey Abrams was getting her hair did the day Joe was in town several months ago, and she didn't want to be there for that because she had more important things to do. So they continue to distance themselves from Joe Biden. He said this yesterday. We tease ourselves when we say this, most important election of our lifetime. It's kind of like a running joke. Am I right, John? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We say it all the time because every election is the most important election of our lifetime.
Days away from the most consequential election in our history.
In the history, it's the most, you know what? And he might be right. He might be right.
It sure feels that way. And recent polling has said a lot of Americans feel that way, that the state of the world is at issue.
And it sounds familiar. It reminds me of stuff I heard 2 years ago. And then it's got a familiar tone to it. And here's why this stuff matters, because there are, and we look at Senate races, Rubio, Val Demings, they debated last night in Florida. Those people, even in the states, we think, well, I don't care what happens in the Florida Senate race or the Washington Senate race. That matters because these are the people that are going to D.C., especially in a very, very tight Senate and in a tight House. These things matter because they're the ones that are going and making these laws. They're the ones that are, well, I would say they're the ones that are saying, hey, let's forgive all that student loan. Actually, it didn't go for Congress, so that would be an inaccurate statement. Something Joe just said. Just did. Have you started your the process yet, Hannah, for student loan forgiveness? Have you gotten on the website?
Yeah, I filled out the application yesterday. It took like 2 minutes.
How long did it take for you to apply for the loan?
I think also 2 minutes. It wasn't.
It was 2 minutes to apply for a loan.
I can't remember. It's been a long time, but it was pretty easy to apply for the loan.
And just as easy in one fell swoop to forgive it.
It was not easy to pay it all back, I'll tell you that much.
It is now. Are you still conflicted about that?
I don't know.
She doesn't look very conflicted. She looks happy to get a free $10,000.
Right.
And I don't.
I think anyone in my position would be.
Well, it was like with the ARPA money, and so we all criticized it, but I don't know of anybody yet that didn't take the money or didn't spend it. So I hope you.
I still didn't get it. I'm still salty.
So you're salty about that. By the way, you talk about these perception problems with Democrats and us smart people coming up 7:10. And I want you to hear this because New York Mayor Eric Adams, who's complained despite the fact that they're a sanctuary city, complained about the number of immigrants there. He said something yesterday about us and our perception of crime. And then Pelosi, in the same day, said some things. She doesn't believe the pollings that show people don't approve of Biden's handling of the economy. I thought that was as universal as the sky is blue. And she said, well, I don't buy those polls that say that. It's coming up 7:10 this morning. And then at 8:10, John Schneider, Mr. Bo Duke. He's been doing a lot over the years on the, is it the Lifetime Network?
One for women?
One of those for women, Lifetime Network. He does a bunch of movies for them. He's got a really cool movie coming out called To Die For. He's going to be joining us at 8:10. He's gotten very political over the years. You see him on Fox from time to time. You'll hear him this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 90.
simply are depleting our reserves. Our oil reserves do not exist to win midterms. They exist to help this country in an emergency or in the midst of a storm.
That's Marco Rubio, senator from Florida, in his debate against Val Demings last night, talking about this big announcement. Is this the October surprise? That's what's getting us into today's Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
Our strategic reserve is at its lowest level since 1984. We are going to be down to about 400 million barrels of oil. And it's not an October surprise because it's not a surprise at all. So today, Biden is going to, quote unquote, announce he's releasing 15 million barrels of oil. But if you recall, earlier in the year, I think it was back in March, he said, hey, guys, I'm going to release 180 million barrels. This is not 15 on top of the 180, like a new 15. This is just part of the 180 he already said he was going to announce. So maybe he's just like, hey, guys, I did it. I'm doing it.
Yay.
But
And while
that's
he's
not
licking
an
an ice cream
announcement.
cone with the dunce cap.
I don't understand.
Look what I did.
He does say he's going to restock the oil reserve when prices come down. But, like, when is that going to be? I mean, I don't see any signs of that. I mean, it's likely going to be, hopefully, prices come down when this guy's out of office.
When DeSantis wins the presidency in 2024, we call it the Strategic Oil Reserve. There's some truth to that name. It's real strategic when you know you're going to get your ass kicked in the midterms. It's strategic to release the oil now.
Very strategic. All right. So yesterday, Biden was also being consistently out of touch with what people care about. I heard that, even among Democrats, crime is kind of outpacing abortion as far as what they care about. Yet yesterday, Biden was telling folks, hey, we've got to put these abortion protections into law. And all we are is a short handful of votes away in Congress from, codifying the original Roe protections. And, I think they're going to be more than a short handful of votes away.
By the way, Real Clear Politics now, which I think they do aggregate polling. They take a bunch of polls and do the average. They're now saying Herschel Walker is likely to win that Georgia Senate seat. That's according to Real Clear Politics.
I'm really not surprised by that. Also, Nevada is becoming, the state to watch. I'm super jealous because I have a lot of lawyer friends who are headed there around Election Day, and I'm going to be here in Missouri, but I will be watching closely and talking to people on the ground. But they are typically, they've been controlled by Democrats right now. They're governor's mansion, Senate. They've got 3 of their 4 House seats are all Democrats, and a lot of those are in play. So the Senate race is in play, the governor's race is in play, and they could pick up 2 House seats. So kind of all eyes are on there. And if Nevada kind of swings back and becomes a true swing state, I think it has a lot to say about what's happening in the midterms. Of course, it all kind of boils down to turnout. Only half of Americans, according to a recent poll, have high confidence in the midterms. But then again, people think this is the most important election ever. So
including Joe.
I can't come to a bet on the turnout yet.
Joe, it occurred to me the other day, Joe Biden, he reminds me of one of my favorite TV characters of all times because he's inappropriate, says dumb things, thinks he's smart. Might do that at 6:35. By the way, Missouri Senate race, lunch meat is now the latest political football. It's coming up 5 minutes from now.
It's the right time.
Oh, not this again.
She's a brand new boy.
Never gets old, does it?
Sure does.
It was never new.
It's supposed to be the hit song of the summer, according to Trudy Bush Valentine's Twitter account. This is going to be the summer anthem. I don't think those expectations were met. We talk about, we have to adjust and manage our standards, lower your expectations. So in this race, in our Senate race, 20 days from now, Eric Schmitt, our current Attorney General. By the way, Eric Schmitt joins us tomorrow morning, 8:10, here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio, 950 KWOS. The Attorney General joins us tomorrow. So in the Senate campaign race, it seems to shoe-in for Mr. Schmitt right now. But Trudy Bush Valentine, she got a weapon in her back pocket.
What's her weapon?
Lunch meat.
Lunch
you see what they're upset about now?
Why does Trudy Bush Valentine hate bacon? That's what I want to know. Democrats hate bacon? Like, what's more American than bacon?
Than bacon and ham and pork. Apparently, Schmidt been gifted like a Easter ham.
I thought it was a Christmas ham. Anyway, apparently...
You better fact check me on that. Maybe it was not an Easter ham.
And I will say that before, Clean Missouri, which was recent, that now limits, all lobbyist gifts, you were allowed to take lobbyist gifts. You just had to report it. So then everyone knew, oh, guess what? Eric Schmitt got a $25 ham. Apparently, everyone in the legislature got a ham. You know those, workplaces where, they just give all their employees, a turkey before Thanksgiving? It sounds kind of like that.
Is it the ham that you get and you act really excited and you're not because you were hoping for cash instead?
Right.
That kind of ham?
Yeah, that kind of ham. And so apparently Trudy Bush Valentine is mad that Eric Schmitt got a $25 ham.
So is this pork causing beef? Thanks.
Very nice. How many points you give her, Marsh? 5, yeah.
Out of 5, right? Ooh, I'll take it.
All right, so I've checked. I want to fact check this. Run this through our Ministry of Truth. I was wrong. It wasn't an Easter ham.
It was a Christmas ham, right?
It was a damn ham, man. My gosh! And so that's what they're That's what they're hinging their hopes on. We'll get them on.
Honestly, there's that whole ban on lobbyist gifts. I'd be willing to make an exception for free bacon. If you want to give out free bacon, that should be an exception. But again, this happened so long ago. It was before the lobbyist gift ban was in place. And yeah, I think, the idea, the criticism against lobbyist gifts is, someone gives you something free and you vote because you got a free ham. And I think, and Schmidt's like, dude, you're sitting on millions and millions and millions of elitist St. Louis beer money plus who knows what else. You think I'm beholden to anybody growing up in, working at your family farm, doing things on my own. You think I have people calling me up, telling me how to vote? I don't think so.
I will say, not that campaign signs mean anything necessarily, but where I live in Montauk County, there's Trudy Bush Valentine signs everywhere, and I have yet to see a Schmitt sign. One of the big campaign signs that you stick in your yard.
That's weird.
I know.
In Montauk County?
Yes.
How about that? By the way, this is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. That is producer Hannah.
Good morning.
Who hails from Montauk County.
Yeah.
There is Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Who is a member of she's the Board of Older Women in Ashland. Older women meeting last night.
Older people.
What did y'all talk about last night?
We had a work session, a really helpful one before. We're talking about just development, what we need to do. We're developing so fast. We're getting a little bit behind on our infrastructure. Our budget's really tight. And so, yeah, talking about, should there be fees for development? Some people feel like there should be. Or how do we kind of, when something new comes to town, how do we ensure that we have enough city funds to cover the needs, the infrastructure needs of the project or the people that we're adding?
What I hear you saying as a politician, how can we make money off the new people?
Hey, not me.
But yeah, you should, because Ashland, man, that'll be one of the most pivotal towns in our lifetime, to quote a line from Joe Biden this morning. Most important election of our lifetime, the most important town in our lifetime. I think as far as Mid-Missouri is concerned, and I mean that. I'm not just saying that. We've got the airport. As a matter of fact, Mike Parks from the airport. How important is this new terminal? This is not to be dismissed as just kind of like a ribbon-cutting thing in my mind. Oh, look at this shiny new terminal. And I mean that. And I'll take it. People will accuse me of being the Chamber of Commerce guy, and I will own that sometimes. But this is so important for the area, what's happening here. We look at the new medical research facilities, the Roy Blunt Cancer Center, recruitment for Mizzou football. We have the capital city, obviously, here in mid-Missouri. Mizzou and this new airport, which legally, by the way, they had to come into compliance with ADA. I really do think this is a big deal for mid-Missouri, and I'm excited about it.
It's huge. The more people we can get to fly into Columbia, I've got clients and other people who often need to get to Missouri and often need to get to mid-Missouri, and sometimes, and I think in the past, a lot of times, folks will fly into St. Louis, they'll spend the night in St. Louis, eat there, and then they'll drive in. How nice will it be that they feel comfortable coming to Columbia, staying in our hotels, eating in our restaurants before, needing to do business in Missouri.
And that Lakeside Ashland and what Nick Parks is doing out there and what Nick Parks wants to do as far as making these like play and stay venues, because he's right. We have so many people, for example, homecoming this weekend. Steph and I am seeing the homecoming parade, the heart of downtown. Look for us there. I'll be working the Tiger Tailgate. Go to our website. Get free passes starting today about lunchtime. Buffalo Wild Wings, Culligan of Mid-Missouri, Bud Light, High Noon Hard Seltzer. Are you going to be able to join us at the tailgate Saturday, John? Amen, brother. G&D Pizzeria, Phyllis Nichols State Farm Insurance Agency, places you can go today in Columbia, get your free passes. In Jefferson City, you can go to Speedy Bees, Vaughn's Pools and Spas. About lunchtime, we put the passes out. You go to those places, just say, hey, can I get some passes for the tailgate? I heard John Marsh and Branden Rathert, Stephanie Bell, producer Hannah talking about this on the show this morning. It's free, and it's going to be homecoming, and it's going...
Perfect is not what I was hoping for. Why
Stephanie's having a little bit of a wardrobe dilemma for Saturday.
It's going to be a wardrobe malfunction for Stephanie Bell.
It's late October. I had a black and gold sweater because it's late October. It's supposed to be fall, and it's going to be 80.
And didn't you purchase the sweater a couple weeks ago, like specifically for homecoming?
Yeah, and the same thing happened to me last year, and it was like 85. But it was still really fun. It
was a good time last year.
Yeah, that's true. Your generation, Hannah, gets such a bad rap for kind of like, not working very hard. But these kids in the parade, they really go all out. I was shocked and surprised. I've been to some parades recently, not the Mizzou homecoming parade, and been disappointed. I'm like, don't they pomp? Don't they spend hours building those little paper flowers and make the float look all pretty? And really, they had routines, they had outfits, they had chants. They're all competing in the big homecoming competition, but I was really impressed by the quality and the level of the floats last year.
I love the homecoming parade. I have an interesting history with the homecoming parade.
Yeah?
I really do. Maybe we'll share that before the end of the week. I got to check first to see what's cool to talk about, what's not cool to talk about. Hey, yes, you're right. Statute of limitations.
We'll look that one up for you.
Yikes.
And they're doing something interesting this year. They're doing like a non-sensory zone where they're asking to turn the music down on the sirens, because I think of like autistic kids that are really, affected by things like that. John, you seen this story about Trudy Bush Valentine and the mysterious case of the Christmas hams with Eric Schmidt's campaign? So what's the deal? Is it has somebody filed an actual paperwork? Did they sit down and Eric Schmidt got some Oscar Mayer ham?
Yes,
and
you used to have to do that. It's called a lobbyist report, and you used to have to report all of your gifts, and that was. I think that's honestly the best policy with that and with campaign finance. If you want to take all the limits or take a whole bunch of contributions or take a whole bunch of gifts, I don't really care as long as I know about it. And then I can base my vote on, maybe I shouldn't vote for Branden because he got 5 hams, or whatever. And so it used to be that, if you took Cardinals tickets or you took a free meal or you took a free ham, the lobbyist would then say, on this date, I gave these people whatever.
John, are you familiar with the name Jack Suntrup? He's a long time. He covers especially Missouri state politics. Jack Suntrup writes for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, spends a lot of time in Jefferson City. So he's the one that wrote this article titled Valentine Dings Schmidt for Taking Hams from a Lobbyist.
What a headline.
Right? So then I'm reading in this story, and I'll quote here, quoting the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and I'm thinking, because Jack Suntrup, who, listen, you're working for the Post-Dispatch, I'm guessing you've accomplished a thing or two in life. You cover state politics. you've accomplished a thing or two in life. But I'm wondering, as Jack Suntrup sitting there and asking some of these questions, like this question that he had to have asked to get an answer, I'm quoting the Post-Dispatch here. Asked whether any of the hams influenced Schmidt's votes, the Attorney General's campaign directed attention to Valentine. So as a reporter, have you ever had this scenario, John, in your 30 years of covering politics in Jefferson City here in mid-Missouri? Have you ever sat down, pen and paper and your tape recorder, and Mr. Lawmaker, did that Christmas ham, did it affect how you voted on this multi-billion-dollar issue? Ham breakfast. By the way, Schmidt looks good in all the polls. Eric Schmidt running for Senate, of course. He is joining us tomorrow, 8:10, here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Glad you could be here this morning. Coming up, 8:10, Bo Duke or Luke Duke. Which one was John Schneider? Was he Luke Duke or Bo Duke? He was Bo Duke. Just one of the good old boys. Been doing a lot of movies. He was on back. He's one of the founders, along with Marie Osmond, of the Children's Miracle Network, which Zimmer, I think, for 14 years has been working with the Children's Miracle Network. John Schneider is one of the two people that founded that thing that we've done for 14 years now. And Hannah, did you hear up to 14 years, this is no kidding, the exact total of what we have done with the Children's Miracle Network? And it's not that it's copious amounts of money. That's cool. But have you heard the exact amount of money that we have raised?
I have.
It's kind of, did you find it interesting, or is it just me?
I was proud of us.
Yeah.
I was like, look at us.
Proud, but it's just a really interesting figure. We might do that
You just have to wonder whether this could be Durham's swan song here, that this was something that, there was great expectation here, and it's just fizzled.
It's Fox's Neil Cavito yesterday on special counsel John Durham's case has just fizzled. Danchenko yesterday. This was Russian disinformation, Steele dossier. And this is, I think, the second thing that's just kind of fizzled. In other words, nothing there. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Mr. Brian Houseworth is here. There's producer Hannah.
Good morning.
So coming up 8:10 this morning, John Schneider is here. Bo Duke for years on the Dukes of Hazzard. Now, probably a lot of us remember. Been in a lot of movies. Had some songs that have been on tops of the country music charts. Still doing movies. He's got a movie called To Die For. It's about this grizzly old veteran and him driving around with an American flag in the back of the truck. And townspeople want him to quit flying the American flag in the back of his truck because it offends some people. This is a movie he starred in, he wrote, produced. He's hanging out with us here this morning, 8:10 on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Hannah, and by the way, the other thing that he did, he founded the Children's Miracle Network, and that's something that's really important to us.
Yeah, here at Zimmer Communications, we do an annual radiothon. We dedicate 2 days of airtime to raising money for, the local children's hospital, and we've seen a lot of success with that over the last 14 years.
As a matter of fact, so before his visit, since he founded this, wanted to talk to him a little bit. We found out our total yesterday. It's $3,499,900. We're like $100 away from $3.5 million.
But I thought you were going to put in your donation so that we could
making it even $3.5 million. Welcome to the show. My name is Branden Rathert. Big event happening here in mid-Missouri today. Mike Parks, director of the Columbia Regional Airport. We want to welcome you into the show. This thing happened. So today it's a grand opening, maybe kind of a ribbon cutting for the new terminal. But talk about why this is so important to us here in mid-Missouri, Mike.
Good morning. Yes, super excited. It's going to be starting at 3 o'clock this afternoon. There's a lot of improvements that you're going to see over the old terminal, which is an understatement, right?
Yeah.
The old terminal is 16,000 square feet. You're going to see 52,000 square foot facility in the new terminal. But some of the benefits of the new terminal, of course, is not just ADA accessible terminal, but it's also an ADA friendly terminal. We have additional parking that's being completed now. We have.
Is it going to be paved? Because your spillover parking's gravel. I just got to ask, as a frequent user of the Columbia Regional Airport.
That's exactly right. No, it is it's going to be an asphalt parking lot with 93 spaces added. That'll be just west of the front of the new terminal. So that's where that parking lot's going to be. Just some other benefits there of the new terminal is, of course, maybe one of the biggest ones that everybody's going to really like is passenger boarding bridges are installed on the new terminal. So no more walking outside in the rain and snow.
But you know what? I got to say this, and maybe Stephanie can. So a lot of times when she flies under different circumstances out of Columbia Regional Airport.
And I like but I like walking onto the
So do
tarmac.
I.
Yeah, because you feel like you're on a professional sports team or something.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say, Mike. I was going to say every time I walk to that thing with my luggage, I feel like a baller because I'm walking on the runway.
But then when it's cold and they're like, hang on, and I'm wearing dress shoes, and I'm like, I'm going to get injured on this tarmac, really.
Our heads in the same space. I love that stuff. But this is really, it is important for the entire region because, you can talk about Mizzou and all the learned folks and these scientists that are just doing incredible things. And you talk about, being the hub of government in the state of Missouri. And the other thing, too, I do believe in a sense of arrival. When you arrive at mid-Missouri, there should be a sense of arrival.
Speaking of,
exactly right.
Is the Mizzou fight song going to play when the baggage claim rolls? Because I'll be sad if that goes away.
Yes, it will.
Yay! Okay, good.
The University of Missouri has done they sponsored an entire wall in our baggage claim area. So it's a very, very nice wall with 2 monitors up that are going to promote activities at Mizzou. And then, of course, we're going to have the Mizzou fight song playing on for the baggage claim belt.
Very cool. Michael Parks, Director, Columbia Regional Airport. We appreciate you joining us this morning. We'll see you out there. The public, you're invited 3 o'clock this afternoon. And we'll have the official opening date of when that terminal is going to be open. That is going to be announced today, unless Oh, he can't tell us now. Coming up 7:10. Apparently it's a perception problem. The economy, that's fine. The fear of fearing for our safety. These are just illusions. We're covering that at 7:10.
I was doing really good, and now we're not. And we make decent money, but
Every week I go out for groceries, it's like another dollar up, another dollar, another dollar.
Everything I like to buy costs more money.
Just buying food, it takes over like a quarter or third of my income.
Oh, over the last few months, it's to the point where I don't even hardly shop anymore. It's ridiculous to go in the store and you can't buy meat. Eggs are even, you go in and you just, like I came out with 2 small bags and paid over $100.
So listen, that's the thing. People, we're not the only one feeling that. A whole lot of folks. We just, we know prices are high. It sucks. But you know what? 20 days from now, midterms. And I think it's important. And here really in mid-Missouri, I mean, people like David Tyson Smith, he'll win his election, Democrat state lawmaker in the Columbia area. But otherwise, John, we're pretty good. If we look at Schmidt Valentine, if we look at Mark Alford versus Jack Truman, has anybody? I've seen nothing.
What does that guy look like? Have you seen a picture of him?
I envision. I just can't. I swear to God, I envision Truman the Tiger at Faroe Field. That's what I envision. Maybe that's who Jack Truman is. Maybe he's Truman the Tiger. What do you know of Jack Truman, Marsh? No. I've not, unless he's got one now. Have not been able to find campaign stuff on him. I don't know if it's just the token, like, hey, listen, Democrats, we gotta have somebody in this 4th congressional district race. We know he's not gonna win, but and let's find somebody who's got a Missouri-esque name. How about Danforth? No, look what he did in that Senate race with John F. Wood. We don't want that kind of Missouri name. Truman. Nothing more Truman than Jack Truman. Yeah, I mean, that's about what it is. Why should you vote for me? Well, I'm a Democrat, and my last name's Truman. That's how's work. What do you know about this Jack Truman guy?
Distant relative. I'm serious. Harry Truman.
Are you serious?
I mean, very distant. That's my understanding.
Can we all give ourselves a round of applause for making that deduction? That even without knowing.
Yes, absolutely. President Truman. Obviously, people think of him as independence. That's where his presidential library is. And I've been there many times, but he grew up in Lamar, where this Jack Truman is. Jack Truman doesn't have a lot of money, but what I will tell you about him, and I have reached out to him. I want to interview him because I'd like our listeners, even for a news story, to be able to hear what he has to say. He's our congressional candidate, one of them of the 2 major parties. I've not heard back from him, but what I will tell you is he is going to almost all the small towns because I follow him on Twitter. El Dorado Springs, or he'll be in Stockton, or he'll be in Knob Noster. He seems to Clinton, the smaller towns. That's where he's going, and I see him posting stuff, but he just doesn't have a lot of money. This district, Brandon, I think it's worth just saying very quickly. It was not all that long ago completely Democrat. All those counties they voted straight Democratic. Up through the 90s. Ike Skelton was the congressman in that area, and he'd have to get that kind of a turnout for that to, and it's just the landscape obviously has changed. Nonetheless, he is campaigning pretty hard. He just doesn't have any money.
And money helps when you're campaigning for
it does.
4th congressional.
But I have reaced out to him.
Yeah. By the way, we've got some lawmaker from out of district, and we've had.
I've seen that.
We get lawmakers from out of district all the time, and this guy is, what's the word I'm looking for? And I don't know him personally. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but if you were to follow what he does when he watches our video, and by the way, you can watch the show on our Facebook page. You can watch on our YouTube channel, Wake Up Mid-Missouri, but he's leaving comments. I guess best is troll. Is that the word I'm looking for? He's trolling?
Yeah, he's trying to pick an argument.
Yeah, and that's fine. You want to do that. That's what the Facebook page is there for. But then has gotten to where he's sending emails. And so having some context on this guy already, he sends me an email and he says, hey, I'd like to come on your show. And I said, well, we'll politely decline your invitation at this time because there's no reason, there's no session, you're out of district, nothing working on that you are talking about that will impact an audience here in mid-Missouri. And he says, and I read it as fairly smug. Again, it's an email, But it says, well, do you ever have Democrats on your show? And if so, who? Like, he was asking for credentials.
Yeah. I
said, well, Claire McCaskill, David Tyson Smith, Breonna Lennon, Kip Kendra, and I listed. And he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. And I know, I've seen his comments, and definitely when there's an issue, because he does sponsor some bills that are big, but they're not in session. And when that happens, I'm sure we'll have him on. I'm a little taken aback.
No, we won't.
Okay, maybe we won't. No. I don't want to speak for you, obviously. But the tone of his comments are.
Yeah. Well, the point is, we do have Democrats on this show.
Well, and to Brian's point, you can tell he's not even listening to the show. He's just commenting random topics in paragraph form, hoping that we bite on something.
Yeah, he's fishing off a low water bridge, dropping the worm, not catching a bite there, goes over to this cove, drops a worm, and these fish don't bite.
And the other listeners are kind of taking him to
my favorite is that none of us, I don't even think, have replied, but the Wake Up Columbia family members are like, oh no, dude, like we got you.
I've replied to just like a couple.
Okay.
But yesterday, Pat and Emily and a couple others had our back in the comments. Pat have actually just started replying a troll emoji to all of his comments.
Well, he really, well, it's obvious he wants to be in studio on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. He wants to be, but the one point,
a lot of people do.
The one point that I think is worth mentioning, one of his biggest things that he wants us to cover, and I wish he would have heard it because I did. It's up on our website, 939theeagle.com. I'd encourage a representative to take a look at the story. He wanted us to cover the 2 MoDOT employees who were struck by the, he was saying a lack of funding. Really, it may have been a lack of funding, but it was really distracted driver that hit 3 MoDOT employees. 2 were killed in St. Louis. I actually covered that extensively when this couple of weeks ago. They had a huge conference here in Columbia. Missouri ranked last in this country, in safety. We covered it. Quite frankly, Republicans did not look very good in those stories. They didn't because they've been in control. So I would strongly encourage him to read those stories. We covered it, and Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe had some very powerful statements, basically begging people slow down and pay attention. So he's asking us to cover something we did cover extensively. And quite frankly, I was the only reporter there, so I don't know what else he wants us to do on that. If there's charges filed, we'll cover it. But we've covered it also with the director of MoDOT, Patrick McKenna, who told me on the record one of those employees was carrying an unborn child, and as I recall him telling me, the unborn child was killed too.
Oh my God!
Yes, it was terrible. It was horrific.
So slow down. We do get texts. There's a guy that works with Boone County Highway Department. He sends us texts all the time. Those folks, MoDOT workers, and those other folks out there on 63, or when they're out there on 54, 50, I-70, man. Have you ever, like, your car broke down on the side of a highway? It's a scary spot to be.
It is.
Standing out in the stuff, and you don't know if, somebody's had a couple of, an early happy hour coming home, or you don't know if somebody's texting. That's, man, God bless you guys.
Well, we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of a first responder in Columbia being struck and killed on the side of the highway working a traffic accident early in the morning.
God, that was terrible.
My fiance's a firefighter, and I worry just as much when they're working an accident on the side of the road as when he's in a burning building because of stories like that.
Yeah, no question. It's in Hannah, your fiance has a very dangerous job with that. But to the representative's point, we have obviously it's a big priority for MoDOT and the legislature, and we've covered it. And we'll continue to be. To the best of my knowledge, charges were not filed, but we did cover it, even though it was in St. Louis, because it was brought up multiple times at the Capitol and certainly during the conference I covered.
Also, as we talk about state stuff that could be impactful to you, Scott Faughn, Missouri Times, and also does This Week in Missouri Politics, the TV show. He's joining us 7:35. Some thoughts on Jay Ashcroft and that library book ban, and what he says is the biggest story right now. When we talk amongst folks at the Capitol, what he says is the biggest story right now. Scott Faughn is here at 7:35 this morning. And here's the thing with a lot of these Democrats, and Hannah and I, pretty healthy discussion the other day regarding perception on things, and maybe not necessarily, but this is from a political realm, but perception, people in different walks of life, politically, socially, and economically, their perceptions, like if I'm hanging out with a millionaire, their perception of what problems are a little bit different than mine.
Yeah.
And you could apply that not just to money, but I think, when it comes to social issues and when it comes to political issues. Pelosi, yesterday on MSNBC, being asked about these. This is universal that the economy sucks, right?
Unless you're Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And then it's on, what is it, on fire? It's strong as hell, whatever.
While you're licking the ice cream cone.
Yeah.
It's strong as hell.
I think he had a brain freeze.
with the dunce cap and the little fan on top. It spins. So Pelosi yesterday trying to dispute on MSNBC the findings of these polls.
Well, first of all, let me say that I think that much of what you've said I don't agree with. That is to say, the New York Times poll, I think, is an outlier poll.
The New York Times outlier poll, which shows, Americans unhappy with the economy, Biden's at fault. That is not an outlier. That is about every single poll, everywhere.
Cite one poll, but all the other
It's
polls
also the real
have a
clear
different-
politics average
No.
is showing similar issues.
No, but that.
No. Yes.
Sure enough.
No.
Was one that brought down the average, and it was an outlier. It wasn't even that big a sample. So.
Which, by the way, she sounds like us whenever we talk about why we don't like polls. Haven't we all said that before?
Yeah, I mean, I think this year, more than anything, is a big year for the pollsters because, again, I think if they get it really wrong this year, there's going to be a lot of people out there who are just saying, you know what, polls are worth virtually nothing.
Well, there was a hurricane this year.
Dick Morris, John Marsh's classic question to that. Hurricane, that's why my polling was off. Maybe.
Anything can happen, I guess.
And then more proof about these Democrats who are hung on things like Latinx, gender identity, whether that's your actual gender or not. The other thing they don't get is crime. New York City Mayor Eric Adams, Democrat, saying the major crime there, it's just a perception problem, but he goes beyond that. He talks about how we feel. Do you feel safe?
And we're dealing with the perception of fear that people are feeling. That's the combination. And I must deal with that perception.
If you are in fear, that is your perception. And he's saying, he's not saying crime is a perception. He's saying people that fear, it's a perception issue. That is real. If you feel that, you can't take that away from somebody. It's not a perception issue. My goodness. Coming up, we're going to be doing What's Hot with Hannah, just something kind of fun to talk about around the office place today. What do you have for us today, Hannah?
Have you picked out your Halloween costume yet?
Yeah, I've already worn it a couple of times, as a matter of fact.
What? TMI. Google Trends has released the list of the hottest costumes for this year. I'm kind of surprised at what number 1 is.
Good morning, 7:25-ish, which means it's
7:26.
time for What's Hot with Hannah.
You know, we're sitting here on October 19th. Halloween is approaching. Stephanie, I'm sure your kiddos are getting very excited. Have they picked out their Halloween costumes yet?
And they have, and they are completely ridiculous.
Of course, I would expect nothing less. Was it Drew last year that went as a WWE guy?
Macho Man Randy Savage in red leather and leopard with streamers on the arms.
Of course, your kid would do that.
Yes.
Google Trends has released the hottest trending Google searches for Halloween costumes for 2022, and I'm kind of surprised at what the top 10 are. There's some missing movie characters from the list, I think. Let's see. Number 1 is still a witch.
Really?
Yes. And number 2 is Spider-Man. 3, dinosaur. 4 is Stranger Things, which is a Netflix TV show.
She said, looking at me because I have no cultural hipness.
I had to Gen Z-splain you. Let's see. Then a fairy, pirate, rabbit.
Wait.
Wonder what kind of
a
rabbit.
Fairy pirate?
Well, then there's 3. 5 was fairy.
Who dresses up as a rabbit for Halloween?
Well, I wonder if it's a bunny.
Oh.
See, bunny and rabbit, those are two way different things, John. We know this, don't we?
Because I had the same question, and then I thought about it for another second and went, oh, yeah. And then a cheerleader, a cowboy, and Harley Quinn.
Oh, yeah.
But trending is Hocus Pocus 2. It's farther down in the ranks. Yeah. Top Gun Maverick is trending at number 44.
Saw that at a party Thursday.
I just figured that Top Gun would be a lot higher up on the list. Maybe the president's getting rid of the aviator sunglasses trend. I don't know.
I think because it's so easy, you just need really a flight jacket and shades. And maybe if you want to actually get a flight suit.
Yeah, that's what Chris and I bought. We have matching flight suits.
I think it's a fine line between janitor and Top Gun, right?
Hey, mine has an America patch on it, so that's what distinguishes it between janitor and flight.
So what are the weird things you said your kids are doing this year?
They're inflatables. So they they self-inflate. So Eden is an explorer, and she's riding a tiger, and the tiger is this huge inflatable on either side of her.
Oh, that's cool.
And Drew is the one, you've seen it probably before. It looks like he's being abducted by an alien. The alien's inflatable.
So what's number 1 on the list? This will be, so in other words, if you go to a Halloween party dressed as this, there's a good chance that you're going to be encountered by other
witches.
All right. What about dudes going as witches?
I don't know.
That's a twist on it.
It's a warlock, right? Is there a dude version of a witch?
Yeah.
Coming up, Scott Faughn, Missouri Times says this is still the biggest story in Missouri politics. What is it? We find out 5 minutes from now.
if that is not an age-appropriate material from, say, a minor, that should not be in a part of the library that the minor is going to have access to.
Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft chatting with our news partners, ABC 17. By the way, he's in studio, I think, next week or right before the election, talking about everything we'll need to know as it relates to the election. We are 20 days away, and I want to bring in Scott Faughn, host the TV show This Week in Missouri Politics. And great, if you're looking for really good insight and analysis on state news, check out the Missouri Times. Today, he's wants to be introduced as Scotty Cronkite, which is way better than the intro I was going to give you. You want to hear the intro I was going to give you?
Absolutely.
And I decided not to use that. I thought, well, maybe it's because you would get it. But I like Scotty Cronkite, too. I was going to introduce you as one of the few people in my social circle that takes the phrase toothbrush literally. Because but I'll save it for the roast, man.
That's just old-fashioned hillbilly racism.
Right on.
Right there.
Scotty?
I was either one to be Scotty. I like our man that's running for Congress who's going to get slaughtered in this race. I like his play, though. I either think of Scotty Cronkite or Scotty Hawks.
Oh, man, we're losing the signal here.
Uh-oh.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Does he want that last name because, like Jack Truman, it's going to, like, give him name ID? I was thinking, if you're the kind of person who picks people on the ballot and, you know, by their last name only, are you like the same kind of person who picks the wine bottle by the label? Like, which picture is cuter? You walk into the ballot box and you're like, which name do I like best?
Is that how it's done, Marsh? Yeah. All right. So, Scotty Cronkite, hanging out with us here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Stephanie Bell, producer Hannah Bryan, Houseworth, John Marsh. I am Branden Rathert. So, what's the Scotty Cronkite gig, Scott?
Well, I just figure if we could trade off that last name, I mean, it works for other people. I think it might work for me. I guess as long as I don't write a book that's got any dirty pictures in it or anything, I guess I'm good.
Well, and we've seen it happen before. I mean, we saw when Michaela Burke tried to challenge Sarah Walsh, and suddenly she was Michaela Burke Skelton for the campaign, and she had never used the Skelton name really before, but for the campaign, she sure did. Anyway.
She should have said, we'll settle this with a game of Scrabble. I would have liked the chances.
So let me ask you, and I appreciate it. By the way, what our Secretary of State, Jay Ashcroft, who run for governor, what he said there is real simple. Listen, we have these foul books, and Stephanie and I have looked at these books. I don't know if it was more disgust or shame when we looked at some of these books that are in libraries that are geared towards kids. We were looking at pictures one morning, and it was blowing me away, and I appreciate this, what Ashcroft is saying. Those books just don't belong in kids' sections. But what about this idea? You have a Secretary of State coming out with a policy-like idea. I mean, it seems, and I don't disagree with the guy, but what are your thoughts on a Secretary of State doing something like this?
The first question that always comes to my mind is, what kid reads library books? I mean, seriously. Maybe I was just, maybe it's just a hillbilly tradition and not read books when you're a little kid, but what little kid goes to, oh, Dad, I want to go to the library today to get a book? But I assume that must happen to somebody. I think it's fine to have ideas, but for the most part, the executive branch enforces the laws, right? I tend to think the problem with society probably is not the overabundance of reading of books from libraries by little kids, but I could be wrong.
Well, and the Secretary of State actually is like in charge of the library. You kind of wonder what some of these folks do. And everyone knows him as in charge of kind of business services and elections. But the state library and like records and archives also kind of fall under his umbrella. So
isn't he in charge of the one library, not all the libraries?
Well,
like the one here in town?
Yes, that's true.
So, when you go into the Secretary of State's office, when you go into the building, there's a pretty substantial library there. What if you were to go? Is there a librarian in that library?
Yes.
Scott? Really?
Yes.
I'm just going to float the idea that you would have more people from Butler County actually go to that library if they thought there was dirty books there. 'Cause right now, the only person in Butler County I've ever seen go in that library is me when I was waiting to see Jay. But if I thought there was dirty books in there, I have a much better chance of actually going to the library.
All right, Scotty Cronkite from Missouri Times this week in Missouri politics, hanging out with us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. So what is right now, of course, special session a couple of weeks ago, one of the most impactful things to happen for a while, and that is an increase in paychecks because of the conservative, Republican, majority-led State House passed meaningful stuff. The governor signed it into law. You're getting more money in your paychecks. Tax rates going down. That aside, what's the big talk in Jefferson City right now?
Two things. One, if you can find someone when the tax cut goes into effect that can notice it, I think I'd love to talk to that person. I would love for Brian to find that person and find out how much they saved. I think it's going to be a very interesting thing to know who notices this. But right now, the biggest talk in the Capitol is it going to be puff puff pass or puff puff fail? It's the pot thing, right? It's a really interesting debate, and I think it's odd how they're going about it. Currently, if you go to the doctor, I think pretty much there's like 85 things you can get a pot card for. Pretty much any doctor just checks the box and you pay your office visit and go on. And then you can go to places. And I tell you, Missouri Boulevard in Jeff City, the dispensary is a very classy place. If you're just a couple going to church on Sunday morning, you could drive right by that. You'd never know it sold pot.
What are the insides of those dispensaries like, Scotty Cronkite?
See, I'm German. We drink our vodka, so I really don't know.
Trick question. Good work.
I'm just German, and I certainly have a lengthy list of vices. Pot's not one of them, so I really don't know. But I've heard they're very nice, like an Apple store in there, from folks that partake. Essentially, they're going to legalize it. They want to use this same structure. But there's folks that want to just kind of sell pot everywhere. They're pretty ticked. And so their argument isn't, hey, pot's bad.
Yeah.
I mean, look, my mom in West Butler County, she would vote against pot if she thought she was voting against pot, right? She's not for the pot. That was the case when I was in high school, and that's the case today. But their messaging campaign is that it's too regulated. Like, they want more people to be able to sell pot more places, and they've got opposition. And in Missouri, it's traditionally very easy to get a no on these things and very hard to get a yes. So it's going to be interesting. I would thought on its face, like it has in other states, once you do medical, they just pass recreational. But in Missouri, you're seeing some pushback, and it's coming from the right wing, and it's complaining about the regulation. I think what you're seeing is folks that didn't get a license, that applied for licenses to sell pot and didn't get one. They're kind of banding together to say, no, we're going to beat this and try to throw the whole system out.
So let me ask you this, and I know Marsh is giving me the elbow here because I know he wants to bend your ear for a second too. Do you know? So the thing with Amendment 3, it's legalized weed, but it does some other things. It allows folks that are in jail, if there are any left in prison on simple marijuana offenses, nonviolent marijuana offenses, allows them to petition. It's really the licensing process. So there's enough stuff there that really has people thinking. There's very few people that I hear come at this on a moral angle anymore. I will ask you this. And you don't have to say how you're voting unless you want to, but do you know the way that you are going to vote 20 days from now on Amendment 3?
Sure. I'm going to vote for it. Okay. I think they've done a good job. Listen, I believe you should get to make your own choices personally. Now, I don't choose to smoke pot. But that's just probably the German in me. Anheuser-Busch just done a great job. Maybe if you put a red A with an eagle flying through it on the rolling papers, I might be into it. I'm just German. I just drink, probably too much. Nancy Giddens almost killed me Monday with it. One more in me, put me in an early grave Monday.
Well,
but
hey,
I don't do it, but
okay.
I think you should be able to.
Listen,
right?
on that note, seriously, if you ever want to do something different, your boy here don't drink anymore. 786 days. If you ever decide you want to do something different, you let me know. All right, our guest, Scotty Cronkite from Missouri Times, joining us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
I'll be your Cheech. Well, the OA commissioner, Ken Zellers, OA is the most important job in state government that isn't the governor. If there is a job that would be deputy governor, it would be the OA commissioner. It's impossible in this length of this show to outline all of the responsibilities of OA, but pretty much anything that's administrative, they have a hand in. And look, I think Greg's case is that they're interpreting this wrong. I think Greg is kind of pro sunshine law, and obviously with everything Greg, he does it in a pretty effective way. OA has a lot to say grace over, and frankly, I mean, I think you're seeing there's two things happening right now. You have the issue with the personal privacy information, and you have some contracts that were let for bid, and one of them is going to be a big deal in the legislature. You're going to hear this. I guarantee you won't get to Martin Luther King Day without having a guest on your show bring this up. There was a contract from this company, and they give you a ride to the hospital, right, for Medicaid. So if you're sick, the state now will pay to pick you up and take you to the doctor and bring you home. Well, this company ditched the state twice, like just wrote a letter says we're no longer doing this. Just totally left people waiting to see the doctor at their house. The car doesn't come. So this company, and this other company came in, stepped in and said, we'll take over. We'll take over. We'll organize it and get it going. Well, they've had the contract for 10 years now. And this company that has left the state in the lurch twice gets the bid. I mean, in a shocking situation, and probably exposes some problems with the state's bidding process. I mean, would you want your grandma waiting on someone to take her to the doctor, and the old boys twice have just ditched out and not shown up, and you hire them a third time? I think it's a process problem with Medicaid, and that's where I think you're going to see the next round of, okay, let's dig into these emails with bids and what have you. There's a lawsuit going on right now. Chuck Hatfield, who I guess he just wakes up in the morning and wins lawsuits all day, he's got the case. So if I was OA, I'd be very concerned about, I tell you what, if I was in state government and Chuck Hatfield was on the other side of you, I wouldn't feel good about that day.
Okay, moving on, I want to ask real quickly, how concerned are you about free hams?
Free hand, there's many things in life I'm concerned about. The Cardinals pitching rotation, the Cardinals outfield, the supply of Bud Light in the central Missouri area, but free hand is not one of them.
But free ham, like Trudy Bush Valentine is criticizing Eric Schmidt for taking a free ham from Smithfield, I guess, right? And saying...
Well, I think Gussie's daughter is a nice person, and I respect her for taking the ballot slot of the losing side here, but I hope that these last few weeks, as it gets darker and dimmer and less likely to win, she is a very nice person, and I've seen people in these races grasp at straws. You're literally I have a hard time thinking any Missouri family is going to really look down on Eric Schmidt for taking a free hand from Joel Paddock. I just don't see it. It's almost like they had some tweet he had about Kanye West, and they're like, "Oh, well, you're obviously very anti-Semitic." I think she's a nice person who's going to get beat, probably double digits. I saw she put $3 million of her money into the campaign. That's admirable, right? To be a good soldier and kind of finish it out. But let's be real. As long as, when the Republicans were in office, you could fill your truck up and hand the clerk $2.20s and get folding money back. Now you have to swipe your card twice to fill your truck up.
All right.
There's just no hope to win.
I gotta get going. Says a guy who gives Trudy Bush Valentine a lot of money in the way of Bush beer. Scotty Cronkite, Missouri Times. Who do you have this week on Missouri politics?
I think we're going to have a debate about this Amendment 3. So I guess we'll roll them up and kick the topic around, and we'll find out where the opposition comes from and what the supporters say.
Hey, that might be one that will get you some more viewers. They're gonna light up on This Week in Missouri Politics and debate the
roll
whether or
up
not
Fatty and watch this Daddy Talk Pot Sunday morning on KMOS.
He's a welcoming face in Fulton.
Everybody knows who he is.
He's a celebrity in our community.
Every day, even if you're having a rough day, you drive by, see him smiling, it has to put a smile on your face.
I really dig this guy in Fulton. Pastor Mike Krausen, several months ago, earlier this year, Emily Spain from KOMU Channel 8, she does a really cool feature I happen to like. It's MVP, and the reason I like it because she does kind of like what we try to do here on Feel Good Fridays here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. We try to highlight cool people doing cool things.
Yeah.
Some more of the nicer stuff, more positive stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's things like that. And that's kind of what Emily Spain does with her MVP feature on Channel 8. But she was talking about this Pastor Mike Krausen for like 20 years, 2nd and Bluff Streets in Fulton. He just sits out there in a wheelchair and just waves at people, and they honk and everything. And it was just a cool, I think it was back like right at the start of the summer or something. And we talked about it because it was a Feel Good Friday event. And as a matter of fact, we reached out to Emily Spain and said, hey, man, that was really cool. Well, there's an update, apparently. According to Channel 8, folks in the congregation. So he's been the pastor of Harmony Baptist Church for like 25 years now. So in an effort to give back to him, the church's congregation and other folks in Fulton, I'm sure other folks from around mid-Missouri, they donated nearly $15,000 to get him a new wheelchair because he's in a wheelchair. He's like, but you know what? I'm still of service to community. And how cool is that, by the way, to see somebody sitting out on the roadway every morning waving and not holding a sign, by the way, that says any amount helps, God bless you. He's not asking for money. It's cool. Like he's giving back, and that's the thing that he's bringing joy to people in Fulton.
Yeah, and I'm sure it brings him joy. One of my favorite things I ever did was there was a color run running by our church, and we got a big group of people together, and we just gave free high fives, and it gives you joy, like bringing joy to other people. Now, if I was by myself just handing out high fives on the street, people would probably be afraid.
911, we got a crazy woman out here.
We had that in Ashland for a bit. We had the crossing guard who wore the crazy hat and brought just a little bit of, you never know what people wake up to. So a smile, a friendly pastor waving on the corner. I mean, that's amazing. What dedication to his community.
I love that. And then they got him a wheelchair, and so now he can. Did you see this wheelchair? Man, it's like something you'd see at Yellowstone in the winter. Like it's got treads on it to go over. It's like not a tank, but like tank tracks. Is that?
Well, if he's awesome, that's great.
I appreciate people who do stuff like that. Coming up, remember Bo Duke, John Schneider. He's kind of gotten active in politics over the years. Still does movies. He has a really interesting movie called To Die For. He's going to be joining us actually coming up 8:10. John Schneider, Bo Duke, hanging out with us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
What is your problem with the flag?
It's not my flag. That's your flag. Too many lies have been told to my people under the shadow of that flag.
I want you to take it down.
From where?
Your truck.
My truck, my flag.
Some people find it offensive.
What if I find them offensive? You're going to take them down? Why the hell is everybody so damn worried about losing their jobs and so little worried about losing their freedom?
I have a right to take a knee. It's called freedom of speech.
You don't have a right to know squat. You gave that up the second your knee hit the grass. I was willing to sacrifice my life for your right to take a knee. What are you willing to sacrifice for my right not to?
It's a movie trailer from John Schneider's new movie, Bo Duke. He's got a new movie. He's done this a lot. I didn't know this till I started seeing him on Fox News, but he's been doing movies like on the Lifetime Network, things like that. Of course, huge country star over the years, but most of us probably know him as Bo Duke on the Dukes of Hazzard from way back in the day. And it's kind of interesting because he's one of those folks in Hollywood, and he's been on like Smallville, done all this stuff, but he's one of those rare people in Hollywood that's been able to come out and say, hey, you know what? Here's what I think about things, and it doesn't agree with what USA Today and MSNBC and CNN is saying. I don't agree with that stuff, but you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. Let's welcome into the show John Schneider. John, welcome back into Wake Up Mid-Missouri, man. How you doing?
Well, hey, I'm doing great. Thank you for that introduction. I just don't know how not to say what's on my mind.
Yeah.
And we are. Make no mistake, we are. Those of us who are patriotic, those of us who stand for the flag and salute the flag and respect those who have risked everything for it. We don't know how to stand down, and we shouldn't. We are. Make no mistake, we are under attack. Those folks who are patriotic, who love their country, who are not in their core globalist minded, we will do anything we can to fight for our freedom and the symbol of our freedom, which, in my mind, is our flag.
And that's what this movie To Die For is about. I've seen you guys gave me some of the clips from it. Man, it's like really good. It's kind of John Schneider's playing a salty veteran who likes to carry the flag around in the back of his truck. Townspeople get upset. But I want to ask you this, John, because here's my take. People say, well, I have the freedom of speech to kneel, and I have the freedom of speech to do this to the flag. And I say yes, but I'm also I'm passing personal judgment on you. Am I wrong for doing that?
No, you're not wrong for doing that. There's a fine line between your freedom of speech. I mean, the people who are arguing about burning the flag as freedom of speech are the same people who are taking us off Facebook and social media. So, they speak with forked tongue. But I heard once a long time ago, it might have been my grandfather said that the flag and the Constitution give us the right to do all that but which is wrong. And there are things, and I'm sorry, left folk, there are things that are just wrong. And it's not really up for interpretation. We have the United States of America, in my opinion, and many people I talk to, is truly the city on a hill, inspired by God to be the very tangible breath of freedom and the pursuit of happiness. Now, I guess it could be said that when your pursuit of happiness steps on mine, then we have a problem. So that's the area John Schneider thinks that's where you start to go wrong with the exercising of your freedom. When your exercising of your freedom curtails mine, then we have got to debate that.
All right, John Schneider joining. But you got to check out this movie. This movie is, man, this is really good stuff. It's to die for. It's going to be available on DVD, streaming at cineflexdod.com, and that will be tomorrow.
Tomorrow. I tell you, the easy way is just go to dieformovie.com. And if you do it today, you can't stream it until 12:01 tonight. But if you do it today, then it's half price It is streaming for a month, and then the DVD comes out on what we call at the Schneider household Orange Friday, in honor of the General Lee. Of course, got to have my Duke's roots in here somewhere. So that comes out. The DVD comes out Orange Friday, the Friday after Thanksgiving. Streaming is at todieformovie.com. And I want people to watch this because I feel that it is going to urge people to engage in real conversation. The few friends that I have that have seen the movie, I've shown it, I've tested it a bit, say, you say in this movie everything that we think and everything that we want to say, but for some reason we don't have the nerve to do it. Like when somebody asks me if I got the jab, I say I wouldn't get that shot with Baldwin's arm.
Very nice. I like the take.
So it's got humor, but at its core, it is a movie that celebrates our flag, and it celebrates those who have given their lives and the families who have lost loved ones who have given their lives for the protection of our most glorious symbol.
John, in terms of, and we really appreciate you joining us on the program. I grew up watching you. So I'm 51 now. Grew up watching you on the Dukes of Hazzard, and people forget you were 18 basically when you won that role. But we talk about Hollywood now. And obviously, everyone knows Hollywood's very liberal now. Everybody knows that. But back when you were starting, I'm thinking back in the 70s, I just wrote down a couple of names. Doris Day, she was a big Republican. Ronald Reagan, Bob Hope, Bing Crosby. When did, in fact, you were on with President Reagan and the First Lady on the Christmas in Washington back in 1982. I remember seeing that on television.
Yeah, sure was.
You were on that
was.
up there with the President of the United States. When did all that change? When did Hollywood? Because there were a lot of conservatives in those days.
Well, I think when there were only three networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC were owned certainly by major corporations that had many people. They were owned by stockholders at that point. Mm-hmm. But then when with the advent of cable and all of a sudden we had not 3 channels but 100 and then 200 and then 800 and then everybody has a channel in their pocket, then it became that the folks who had the loudest voice were the ones who could afford to purchase it. So now the Hollywood that we think of now is really not. It's not Cecil B. DeMille and Daryl Zanuck and Robert Evans, who my wife used to work for. It's not just run by people who work for stockholders. It's run by individuals because it's owned by individuals. So when people like Soros and people like Zuckerberg and whoever it is that owns Netflix, when they have so much power because they have so much money, people wind up, I think inadvertently, mostly, like the old song says, owing their soul to the company store. So I don't really think, other than Rob Reiner, who just infuriates me in a delightfully comedic way. And somebody told me when they saw this movie, they said, John, you play Archie Bunker, but you're right.
All right, our guest this morning, John Schneider, obviously Dukes of Hazzard, Smallville. He has a really good movie. It's called To Die For. Several different ways you can get it. You can get it at a discount, too. We'll cover that again before we finish our conversation with Mr. John Schneider here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
The car is innocent. Yes, I think Tom came up with that. Yeah. And the show was innocent. And there was no, personally, I believe that is a rebel flag. When I was growing up, Leonard Skinner had it. They've now apologized. The remaining members of, I think Artemis Pyle apologized, which I disagree with. That flag means to you, I think it's been misrepresented. Certainly the Dukes of Hazzard was misrepresented. But it seems to me like the liberal folk can just say anything they want, and it's taken as gospel by at least the liberal crowd. I mean, the conservatives look at it and go, well, wait a minute. No, that's not a glass of orange juice. That's a glass of grapefruit juice. But, no matter what they say, they think that everyone will take their word for it. So the flag on the top of the General Lee was there to celebrate, and it's in one of the episodes, Happy Birthday, General Lee, to celebrate Southern pride. And Southern pride has got nothing whatsoever to do with racism. Mm-hmm. Then we get into conversations about states' rights, and then we get into conversations about gross overreach of a federal government into the rights of individual states and individual people. And we could talk about that for the rest of our lives. So that flag does not represent, in my mind, what the liberal left says it represents, and therefore the Dukes of Hazzard did not either, and therefore Bo and Luke and Uncle Jesse and Daisy were not guilty of racism by virtue of the flag on top of their car.
John,
it's just absurd.
Yeah, I agree. John, by the way, before we wrap up here, a couple of things I want you to know. Right now I'm tweeting at Alec Baldwin what you said about the Japanese. Do you, seriously, because we hear this stuff, and I want to assure people these aren't the conservative talking points, Hollywood's liberal elite. Do you have people, and let's seriously, like you have encounters with other celebrities, and they give you dirty looks and stuff because you don't think or behave the way you're supposed to, and you're in their eyes. Does that stuff really happen, John?
Well, I think they're about to. I think this, really, I would love to think that Hollywood cares what I think, but I'm totally inconsequential in their mind. Yep. And I understand that. I realize that. But, they are also totally inconsequential in my mind. Right. They can't fire me. I quit years ago. My wife and I design, produce, and distribute our own content. We make movies and music about subject matter that we want to, with whom we want to, and whenever we want to.
All right.
John, on some level,
yeah, go ahead.
I know you got it. Well, but when this becomes obviously successful, and we're on our way. The last 3 movies we did were Southern horsepower comedy. They were fun, and we're on our way to success. We have not hit the ball over the fence yet, but I think we're about to. Then we will be a threat to the company store.
All right, John.
We are not yet.
John Schneider.
But folks, help me do that.
All right. But how can we get the discount on your movie To Die For?
You go today. You got to go before midnight tonight. I sound like Mike Lindell. Before midnight tonight. And go to todieformovie.com and hit the pre-order button. It's $9.99, and then you can watch that movie tonight at 12:01 or tomorrow, whenever you want. And then the DVD comes out, like I said, on Orange Friday, only at johnschneiderstudios.com. I don't complain about Netflix publicly and secretly want to be in business with them. I want nothing to do with them, and they want nothing to do with me. And I like that. todieformovie.com, and it's some really good stuff. I think you'd be pleased in what you guys had sent me, man. It is really. I wouldn't get that shot with Baldwin's arm.
I know. I'm tweeting it right now, John. Hey, Bo Duke says this about you, Mr. Ball. And the other thing, too,
it's really more Jonathan Kent. This guy is a little more Jonathan Kent than Bo Duke.
And I wanted to mention this, too. I know that between you and Maria Osmond, what you guys did for the Children's Miracle Network, we've been doing, we do our radiothon. Been doing this with you all.
I know that, and I so appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yep, we are now 40 years old and $8 billion strong.
All right, John Schneider.
And that's much appreciated, my friend.
You bet, man. Come back and hang out with us again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Well, because we're going to be talking about this runaway sensation To Die For maybe next week. It's going to hit big. If it hits, it's going to hit big, and it's going to be right away.
Well, you talk to your guy Brian, and you hang out with us anytime you want. John Schneider on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Coming up daily, we're going to be doing the Morning Bell Business News. Little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you. What do you have for us this morning?
Well, some good news about inflation.
Oh, yes. Just in time good news from Stephanie Bell. Ding, 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 ding.
We're having some technical difficulties.
It's 8:27 time. Time for
What
the
the
morning.
heck was that?
That was the morning bell.
It's the morning bell.
It sounds different.
It's different, all right. To err is human, to really foul things up requires a computer. That's the morning, just like the one you hear in the stock market. Ding, 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 ding. It's the real thing, man. That's getting us into the day. The morning bell, business news, little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you.
We've got some good news about inflation, probably the only good news, and not really that good of news, but I'm trying to put a spin on it. No, the IRS came out this week, and so a lot of the figures in your tax tables are actually adjusted annually for inflation, and so basically, they adjusted the tables so all the brackets kind of moved up. So if your salary didn't keep the 7% pace of inflation, which a lot of folks didn't, then you might be paying a lower rate on that higher portion of your salary. But in the same way, the standard deduction also went up. And so the standard deduction for those that are married went up $1,800 from $27,700 to that is what it is. $27,700 to whatever that minus $1,800 is, and then for single folks, it went up $900 to $13,850. So if you take the standard deduction, you have a little bit more there. And then also, again, the brackets changed a little bit. So if you're one of those folks who are like, hey, I'm getting paid the same and I'm having to spend a lot more, at least on your taxes, you might be in a lower bracket than you were last year.
And I do believe, you look at tax cuts in Missouri, something small like that, all that little stuff, it does add up into good things. Coming up about 5 minutes from now here on the show. Are we paying attention to what our kids are watching on TV? More specifically, the commercials. And then what is a digital tax? We're covering those stories 5 minutes from now on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Let me tell you something. The court and the extreme Republicans who've spent decades trying to overturn Roe are about to find out. As they say in one of the towns, they ain't seen nothing yet.
I like that. Anytime Joe Biden tries to be cool, I ain't seen nothing yet. And I like every time he tries for a fact to get close to the mic and say they don't know this yet. They ain't seen nothing. Talking with a bunch of women yesterday, like, yay, abortion. That's what they were cheering for. He's saying, these people, they haven't seen anything yet. You know, it occurs to me, I want to play a TV commercial. I've been seeing some campaign ads.
Are we talking about commercials again, Boomer?
You're going to dig this one.
Okay.
Uh-huh. I want to do that here. You know, it occurs to me who Joe Biden reminds me of on TV. I don't get a chance to watch a lot of TV, and when I do watch TV, I like to use it to either I'm watching the news at night and I'm flipping through. There's a channel on DirecTV, I think it's channel 100, where you can watch all the news channels at once.
Wow.
It is incredible. So you can flip through, so it shows 6 different screens on that channel, and you scroll through.
And it gives you a seizure. Like, that sounds like too much.
Well, they're all on. Is what you do is highlight the one, and that's the one that you get the volume for while you're watching, and it's incredible.
I think I would like that on, like, election night, maybe.
Well, it'd be interesting to see, too. It depends. Is that local or national or both?
It's all the cable news outlets.
The cable news, okay. Locally, especially, I would like that to be able to see what they're leading with, what their lead story is. But nationally, I guess, to a certain extent, too.
So I'm seeing these interesting campaign commercials, and a commercial that caught my eye, and might catch your eye, too, Stephanie. But it occurs to me, there's a character on TV, not an old TV show, but mid 2005 till about 2015, one of the biggest shows on TV. It airs relentlessly in reruns on Comedy Central. Joe Biden, for real, reminds me of Michael G. Scott from The Office. Because Michael, Joe Biden, he goes up and he whispers into young girls' ears while he puts hands on them. You really shouldn't date men until you're 30. He says stupid, inappropriate things that he thinks are okay. Michael G. Scott in The Office would say stupid stuff like this.
I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious.
Isn't seriously? Even if you don't know The Office, you don't know Michael G. Scott from The Office, couldn't you envision Joe Biden saying something like that?
Sure.
Like if he were to say it, he'd be like, yeah, I'm not surprised at this point. He would say stuff like this.
I'm an early bird and I'm a night owl, so I'm wise and I have worms.
Isn't that something like Joe Biden could come out and say that from the Rose Garden at the White House? He'd come out and say, I'm wise and I'm a night owl, so I get up early and I have worms. And
if you put it on the teleprompter, he would just read it, right?
And we wouldn't be surprised.
No.
At all. Welcome into the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. A lot of things happening today that we are excited about. Number one, it's going to be a little bit warmer today than what it was yesterday. Also, playoff softball. Elias at Camden today, 4:30. Tomorrow, Fatima, Father Tolton plants that time of year. So a lot of folks excited for that. There's Mr. Brian Houseworth.
Yeah, also today, and this is a terrible story. My first day, graduated from college. My first full-time job was on this date, October the 19th, 1993, 29 years ago today. And a guy, and I think some of our older listeners remember, a guy named Ray Copeland, a serial killer from northern Missouri, died. He killed a number of transients, and a horrible story. And Kenny Holsoff here in Columbia, who many of our people remember, he was our congressman. He prosecuted him. I was thinking of him as I was driving in this morning, Kenny Holsoff, but also the transient. It was a horrible situation. There were still people up there when I left Carrollton in 1995 that told me they were convinced there were other people that were killed up there and buried. They never did find them, but yeah, wife was in. She wasn't killing them, but she definitely knew about it. She said she feared for her safety, but it was a terror. 60 Minutes did stories that Bradley was there. It was a terrible, terrible case. At the time, he was the oldest man on death row in the United States. His name was Ray Copeland, but he died 29 years ago today.
All right, and also on this date in history, the very first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States was, I want to say installed, but that's not the right line.
Well, and I don't think back then they called it the investiture, but yeah, I think took his oath. So John Jay.
John Jay, good work. And see, you say John Jay to me, and I'm thinking, oh, early 2000s, he was the bench player for the St. Louis Cardinals, right? And then he went to the Brewers.
But yeah, he was the John. Exactly. That's that's who normal people, especially baseball fans.
Are you saying I'm not normal, Brian?
You're a policy wonk, but you know what?
Brian's calling me a nerd.
No, but I'm impressed, John Jay. That's a name from the past for sure.
All right, and this is
kind of a Federalist, as I recall.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we're talking about John Jay, not the guy that played first base on a backup basis for the Cardinals. This is our resident nerd, Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
By the way, nobody thinks of you as a nerd. You're on the show. Isn't that right, Hannah?
I am not getting involved in this.
Right,
I'll claim nerd.
There's John Marsh. Welcome to the show. Glad you could be here. I think kind of a big deal today. Columbia Regional Airport and kind of the dedication, ribbon cutting for the new terminal. Because really, the airport, it's a mobile home out in the field in Ashland. I think that's kind of the thing. But this is important stuff, really, what's happening, because I do believe, and I'll take the criticism, I believe there's something about sense of arrival, especially when you think about the great minds that fly into this area, whether it's for politics, school, kids on a recruitment level. I think sense of arrival says something. So just on a veneer surface, I think that's important.
If they could fix the water pressure in the bathrooms, everyone who's been there knows what I'm talking about. When you try to wash your hands, sprays everywhere. And also, they've just, and I don't blame them, but the upkeep just the last 2 months at the airport, I don't think they're spending a lot of money, which I'm glad, because they should be investing it all in the new terminal. But particularly for folks who visited very recently, I actually told the guy, I said, don't let this leave a bad impression. You need to come back. It was his only time in Columbia, and he was giving me where am I? And I'm like, I promise. Come back in a few months, and it's going to be really nice. I promise.
And that's perfect. That's a perfect example of people come here, and you get in an airport, and that is your first impression of mid-Missouri. And by George, if you got to flush that toilet bowl twice because the water pressure isn't
No,
good,
it's in the sinks. It's in the sinks. You turn the sinks on, and it sprays everywhere. It's horrible.
Everybody hates the old two-flusher. All right, let's move along to something. How we even get there? So while I'm watching all of these news channels yesterday, there's a commercial that comes on, and I'm thinking, did I flip to Comedy Central here? But this is on the TV, and it took me a minute, but I thought this would be a commercial, actually, that would catch your eye.
A pea-sized amount of Lumi applied between your butt cheeks like this. I will demonstrate. Just kidding, I won't. Like this. We put Lumi to the test and compared it to a shower.
Now, this is a legitimate commercial. You heard it's for deodorant.
12 hours after a shower with soap and water, the average crotch has an odor score of 5 to 6 out of 10. 12 hours after a shower and applying Lumi, you're at a 0 out of 10. No odor all day. I'm not a mathematician, but I think it means that Lumi is infinitely more effective than a shower alone. So just take a shower or shower with Lumi and be 0 out of 10.
This is so rude. I'm going to tell on myself, because yesterday you said, have you ever heard of Lumi deodorant? And I said, yes, I have some of this at home.
I said, great. Then
and now you're playing this, and I'd never heard these ads or how they, whatever. But it's like deodorant for women, right? And it's a lotion. But men spray Axe body spray all over their whole body.
Let me play a portion of this over again.
It's a pea-sized amount of Lumi applied between your butt cheeks like this. I will demonstrate. Just kidding, I won't.
But it's also a deodorant for the regular deodorant parts too, though.
This is not. You don't take this stuff, rub it in your. Who needs, by the way, and who's like, man, 12 hours later, my rear end don't smell so good. It still needs to smell nice at this point. Who lives their life that way?
People who have active extracurricular activities. No, it's hot in Missouri. I mean.
But who's going to go up and go, we're not dogs.
So I looked up the commercial, and she's in yoga class. We know people who could use some extra deodorant. There's a lot of people. I should walk around handing this stuff out, really. Lots of people need more deodorant.
I have heard lots of glowing reviews about this product.
I have lots of friends who use
But
it.
this is specifically deodorant that you put onto the rear end.
You can put it
use
anywhere.
it everywhere.
Well, you can't do the same thing with Preparation H. I think this is a different deodorant. Is this the all around the specific? I think it's different specifically for the rear end.
No.
You can put it like on your chest. Like men sweat all over. Sweaty backs. You can put it wherever you want.
It's literally called Lumi deodorant.
It's a deodorant.
Okay.
You can use it in other places if you have a particular problem, I guess.
All right, let's leave. Let's leave. I know. I just, my bad. First here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri before we get into my dad's favorite show, the Gary Nolan Show. We might be better served doing a listener mailbag because we got a lot of texts. We got we got some questions regarding the Lumi. So I'm watching the channel. I think it's 100 on DirecTV. You can watch all the national news networks at once. Put 6 of them up on a screen, and you toggle through those, and you can pick the ones you can hear. And I find it's valuable to see how you can see different national news outlets posit things. And then I saw this commercial and I've got a friend, Paula from Gap's Automotive Repair Shop in Columbia, had told me about this stuff before, but it's Lumi deodorant.
It's a pea-sized amount of Lumi applied between your butt cheeks like this. I will demonstrate. Just kidding, I won't. Like this.
And she does demonstrate. But it's a real thing. So it's deodorant, I guess, specifically for the rear end.
No, it's full body. They say you can put it on your feet. You can put it in any. You can put it all over.
Their website says it's for any external area of your body.
So we've
all seen people with, I don't want to say under chest sweat, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've seen it come through people's shirts. That's like, you don't want that.
It's a real life thing. And affects all of us.
Yeah, men too.
That's the analysis.
Well, and Stephanie and I were just talking in the break. You can put regular deodorant on more places than just your armpits.
And so it comes in a nice lotion.
So is this like a roll-on, the stuff that
They have a stick and a lotion. More people could use more deodorant is all I'm saying. Have you ever been to a concert and you just want to walk around passing out free deodorants? I have. For sure.
How about a middle school?
Public transit might be a place. Dwayne says, I can't imagine my wife walking in on me while I'm applying this stuff to my...
She would be thankful, really.
But seriously, you would think somebody walks in and here you got a bottle of lotion and you... I just don't see how it work.
Maybe you should get some and try it out before you're too critical.
Feel free to Google. The commercial is really hilarious, and yeah, you should.
There's lots of really funny ones.
They're really good stuff. So we could do more on reaction to the Lumi deodorant.
Or we could get serious.
You want to get to this? The government will tax anything, and here's proof.
Yeah, so in Maryland, they have a Democrat-controlled legislature, like a supermajority, and they decided they were going to pass a tax on digital ads, which I hadn't even heard of anyone trying to do, but apparently other states are watching Maryland thinking, like, is this going to work? Because if it is, this is a great way for us to grab some more cash. Obviously, big tech and some of the other big companies were not so pleased with the new tax and went to court. And yesterday, a Maryland judge struck down the nation's first digital ad tax. And Judge, Judge Allison Osti in Maryland said the law violated the U.S. Constitution's prohibition on basically state interference with interstate commerce. And she also said it violated this federal law called the Internet Tax Freedom Act, which prohibits discrimination because it only was on like big businesses and digital ads. And so you didn't pay when you were like placing the digital ad on Facebook or Google or whatever, but Google would have to basically pay almost like a corporate tax on all the revenues they generated from digital ads at the end of the year. And the Maryland judge said unconstitutional. So hopefully that deters other states from getting any wild hairs about digital ads.
It kills me, like what people think they can tax. I'm still baffled after having been back in Missouri for 7 years, after being gone for 25 years, that I pay tax on my car that I own. I don't understand it. Marsh, what's in your refrigerator this morning? Oh my gosh, that's gotta suck. So we know that test scores in Missouri are down. We know the problems that kids are going through, especially in districts where they were like, hey, keep the kids at home, put a face mask on them, and now they're gonna have to go back to in-school learn. Which I guess under the You want to sit at home and not socialize with other kids your age as a young teen, or do you want to sit in a room infested with radioactive waste? Which one do you want to choose there? I want to mention this here in Leftovers. Amtrak train returning to one round trip daily here in mid-Missouri. Pair of Missouri River Runner trains. One of my favorite memories as a kid, riding the train from St. Louis to Jefferson City to watch my grandfather working in the capital. Westbound train 311, eastbound train 316, which normally run the more than 5-hour-long trip between St. Louis and Kansas City, will be canceled with no alternative. Nice little write-up in the Jefferson City News Tribune.
It's unfortunate because it's a cheaper way to travel, especially right now when people are tightening their belts. I have ridden it a number of times. Really enjoy it. The kids have ridden it. They loved it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Coming up just minutes from now, it's my dad's favorite show here on the radio station. It is the Gary Nolan Show. Tomorrow, Attorney General and U.S. Senate candidate Eric